Welcome to this companion video to part 2 of building your freight car fleet on a budget. And as always, thanks to my channel subscribers. In this video, I will show you how I assembled these two boxcars. I am using Tichy kit number 4028, which is a rebuilt USRA boxcar with steel sides and 6-foot wide Youngstown doors. The kit includes a body, a separate floor, separate ends in two different styles, sliding doors, a sprue of separately applied body parts, two identical sprues of underframe parts, a brake parts sprue, a set of separately applied stirrup steps, Delrin side frames with plastic wheel sets, weights, a set of wire hand grabs, and an extra set of ladders. This might seem like a bewildering array of parts, but many of these parts will not be used, so take a deep breath and begin. The first step is to check the fit of the floor and the car body. There are plastic wings on the side of the floor which need to fit inside the door openings, and I had to trim a little bit off each end of each wing to get a tight fit. Once the floor fits snugly in the car body, it's time to cement the weights in position. I spread some Crafter's Pick Ultimate Glue inside the weight recesses and on the faces of the weights. After the glue had dried transparent, I fit the weights in position. Remember, this is contact cement, so you only get one chance to position the weight. As you can see, the bond is quite secure. The supplied weights add a little over an ounce to the car weight, bringing the total weight, including metal wheels and axles, to about 3.2 ounces. This is 0.6 of an ounce below the NMRA recommended weight, but I'm not too concerned about this. However, if you are using plastic wheel sets, you'll lose another 0.4 of an ounce. In that case, you should add another ounce of weight to your car. Once the weights were secure, I glued the floor in place. Now it's time to install the car ends. The instructions do not provide any guidance on which ends to use, but based on the pre-drilled holes, I suspect the end shown on the right is intended for use on cars with end hand grabs, and the end shown on the left is intended for cars with end ladders. The kit includes plenty of hand grabs if you use ladders on the car, but you'll need to buy additional 18-inch drop-style hand grabs if you want hand grabs instead of ladders on the ends or on the sides. Notice that the car ends are not identical. One end has 4 mounting holes drilled in the center of the part. This is the B end of the car. I wrote a large B on the back side of this end to be sure I wouldn't confuse the two ends. The underside of the floor has a B cast into the part to distinguish which end is which. The car ends absolutely will not fit properly without filing the edges. The ends of the car body are cast at a slight angle to allow the parts to release from the mold, and this angle prevents a tight fit. I filed the ends off square, and I filed the floor as necessary to achieve a tight fit all around the car end. When I was satisfied with the fit, I cemented the end in place. I repeated this process on the other end. I took a moment to install the couplers. It might be necessary to remove some material from the insides of the coupler pockets to allow the couplers to operate freely. I'm using KD number 5 couplers on this car. Once I was satisfied with the fit, I removed the couplers and coupler pocket covers and put them in a safe place. Next, I drilled the holes for the hand grabs. There are a total of 10 hand grabs on this car, 2 on each side and 3 on each end. Here are my tips for drilling hand grab holes. First, the instructions tell you to use a number 80 drill. Ignore that instruction and use a number 78 drill. The larger hole will make installation much easier, and it will still hold the hand grab securely until you are ready to apply glue. Second, maintain very light pressure on the pin vise while you're drilling the hole. More pressure will not make the drilling go any faster, but it will increase your chances of breaking a drill bit. Third, routinely reverse directions on the drill. This allows the material to clear away from the tip of the drill and improves cutting. Fourth, whenever possible, drill completely through the part. This eliminates the need to trim the ends of the hand grabs when you install them. Finally, drill bits get dull, just as knife blades get dull. You may find that changing out your drill bit makes drilling holes a lot easier. I attach the running boards next. This is much earlier than the instructions direct, but I will clamp the running boards in place with a piece of strip wood and rubber bands while I glue them to the car body. And I do not want to take the chance of the rubber bands disturbing small details on the car underbody. Be sure to sand the running board supports flat and level with a long sanding stick before attaching the running board. Once the running boards were secure, I removed the clamps and attached the hand grabs. Check the fit first, trimming the grabs as needed. Once you have the hand grabs positioned the way you want, secure the ends with a tiny dab of thin superglue. I used a narrow strip of 30,000 styrene to get a consistent standoff distance for the hand grabs. I started building the underframe by cementing the first bolster in position. Notice that the bolsters are not symmetrical. There are two pairs of ridges on one side of each bolster. The brake wads will fit inside the ridges, and the ridges should point toward the center of the car. Here is a view of the bolster in place. Next, I removed the two center sills from the sprue and carefully trimmed off any flash or burrs. The center sills are not identical. One sill has two notches on the face that attaches to the car floor. The other sill has just one notch. These notches fit over locators cast into the underside of the car. I cemented the center sills in position carefully. The parts were slightly warped, so after the test fit, I started cementing at one end of the sill and worked toward the other end, applying cement and straightening the part as I went. Once both center sills had been installed, I cemented the second bolster in position, again paying attention to the orientation of the brake rod locators. These are the door cross bearers. Notice the two holes on either side of the notch. The train line will pass through one of these holes. To make everything easier, I reamed out all four holes with my number 72 drill bit. One of these cross bearers installs through the large pair of brackets on the center sills. I slipped the part through the brackets, then rotated it into position. The notch in the cross bearers was too small, so I trimmed some material from both sides of the notch to allow the notch to fit over the center sills. Here is a view of both cross bearers in position. I completed the underframe assembly by installing the 10 cross-sill channels, as shown here. I started the brake system assembly by forming and installing the train line. The kit provides a length of 20 thousandths phosphor bronze wire. This must be trimmed to length and bent to form the two portions of the train line. The instructions include a template to help you do this, but cut each portion of the train line about 1/4 inch longer than the template indicates. You can trim it to the exact length when you install it. Once I was happy with the fit, I glued the two train line pieces in position using CA glue. The angled ends fit into a slot in the center sill, and the free ends fit under the bolster flanges. This kit includes AB style brakes, which are appropriate for any era from 1933 on. The brake cylinder and air reservoir both require some assembly. The air reservoir comes in 3 pieces as shown, and the brake cylinder comes in 4 pieces. The brake parts sprue includes a short brake cylinder clevis and a long brake cylinder clevis. Use the short clevis. That's part AB25. I had to remount the hole in the clevis mount with a number 63 drill bit to get the clevis shaft to fit. Be very sure that the slot in the end of the clevis is oriented horizontally, it will have to fit onto the long brake lever. Once the glue is cured, use your number 11 blade to slice or scrape off any burrs or casting flash. If you plan to install the air piping, drill number 78 holes in the AB valve, the air reservoir, and the brake cylinder. When you have finished drilling holes in the AB valve, glue the dust filter air supply line in place as shown. The instructions tell you to bend the air supply line to allow it to connect to the train line. Do this by liberally coating the line with thin cement to soften the part. Then you can bend the line as shown here. If you should break the part, don't panic. Simply slice off the air supply line and drill a number 78 hole in the dust filter. Then you can install an air supply line made from wire. Next, I assembled the support brackets for the brake components. The parts for these brackets are found on this sprue of underframe parts. Note that there is an inconsistency. The instructions refer to the air reservoir bracket as part number AB35, but the sprue has two parts labeled AB38. One will be used for the air reservoir bracket, and the other will be used for the brake cylinder bracket. I found it much easier to assemble the brake cylinder bracket and the triple valve bracket, while parts AB36 and AB37 were still attached to the parts sprue. Once the glue had cured, I cut the assemblies off of the sprue and glued them in position as shown here, with the B end of the car to the left. I also cemented the air reservoir and its bracket in place. Next, I installed the AB valve, but before I cemented it in position, I glued wires to the AB valve and bent them to form the air piping. There is no magic formula to bending and installing the piping. Just follow the photographs and take your time. Since the holes in the air reservoir go all the way through the outer wall, you can slide the wire in and out as you make the final fit. When everything fit to my satisfaction, I glued the AB valve in position. I used 0.0125-inch wire for the air piping. It's a little less fragile than 10/1000 wire, and the diameter is almost exactly to scale for 3/4-inch pipe. The brake cylinder needs to be installed so that the clevis at the end of the piston rod mates with the long brake lever, so I deferred cementing the cylinder in position until I had the long brake lever in place. Locate the long brake lever and cement 2 lengths of 10/1000 wire into the slot on the top side of the brake lever. These slots and their attached wires will face the underside of the car deck. I cut the center rod 28 millimeters long, and I cut the outside rod about 60 millimeters long. I will trim the outside rod to length shortly. Next, I carefully threaded the center rod through one of the brake support straps as shown. Be sure the brake lever is oriented as shown. The lever will just barely fit through the brake support strap. Then I glued the brake lever to the brake support strap as shown, and I glued the brake cylinder clevis to the end of the brake lever and cemented the brake cylinder in position. Once the glue on the brake cylinder had cured, I installed the air line between the AB valve and the brake cylinder. Next, I glued a 60 millimeter length of 10/1000 wire to the outside of the short brake lever. When the glue had cured, I had positioned the short brake lever with the free end on top of the smaller brake support strap and the rod end underneath the larger brake support strap, and I cemented it in place. Be sure the free end of the center brake rod will fit into the slot on the top side of the brake lever. Then I placed a dab of glue on the end of the center brake rod and lifted it into position on the brake rod. Finally, I glued the free ends of the brake rods into the guides on the bolsters and trimmed the excess wire. From here on out, handle the car carefully. It is easy to snag the various wires and either pull them free or bend them. The kit includes temporary stands that allow you to rest the car upright on a flat surface without damaging the underbody details. Moving to the B end of the car, I installed the Ajax, the brake chain, the brake platform, and the end brake rod, all in accordance with the instructions, mostly. I had to enlarge the slot ever so slightly to allow the Ajax chain to fit through the slot. A number 73 drill bit was perfect for this. I also attached the brake wheel to the Ajax housing before mounting the Ajax housing to be sure the brake wheel would clear the brake platform and the rooftop running board. In addition, I drilled a number 73 mounting hole in the Ajax for the brake wheel. I had to skip mounting the rocker because the vertical brake rod did not clear the coupler pocket. If I had it to do over again, I would have installed the rocker first, then drawn a vertical line up the car end to locate the Ajax and chain. Then I would have installed the platform supports and platform. If necessary, I would have cut a new platform from 10 thousandths by 100 thousandths strip, with the slot for the brake chain positioned to fit over the brake chain. This would provide a nice vertical brake rod with rocker, and still allow me to use the brake platform support holes. In contrast to the AccuRail and Intermountain kits, the doors on this kit are meant to slide open and shut. I glued the lower slide tabs into the recesses on the back sides of the doors and set them aside to dry. The lower door tracks in one of my kits were pretty badly warped, as you can see here. I straightened styrene parts by laying them in a flat-bottomed dish and weighing them flat. Car body weights work nicely. Then I pour very hot, not boiling, water to submerge the parts and wait for the water to cool to room temperature. You might have to repeat this process to straighten very badly warped parts. Here is a shot of the straightened part. All that remains is to install the upper and lower door tracks and install the doors to make sure the doors slide. I decided to cement my doors in position, but if you plan to have the doors movable, I recommend you paint the doors separately and install them after the car has been painted and decals have been applied. With the end running boards still on the parts sprue, I drilled holes for the corner hand grabs. I substituted Tichy's corner hand grabs for the supplied plastic hand grabs, and I glued them in place with super glue. Once the glue had cured, I trimmed the excess length from the bottom of the running boards. Then I removed them from the sprue and glued them to the ends of the roof. I completed the roof by cementing the running board supports in position on each end of the car. The kit includes tack boards in various sizes. You can choose the sizes you like and glue them in position. The kit includes 2 sets of ladders. One set is included on the underframe sprue, and the other set is on a completely separate sprue. A supplemental instruction sheet mentions that the ladders on the underframe sprue are oversized and advises using the separate ladders. The supplemental instructions further advise cutting the standoffs from the right-hand stringers to get the ladder to sit evenly on the car end, but this is not sufficient, as you can see here. After some careful measurement, I cut off all of the standoffs and glued very short lengths of 20 thousandths square strip to the left-hand stringers. The ladders then fit evenly on the car sides, as you can see in this shot. The last details to install are the stirrup steps. The kit includes Tichy number 3041 slant side mount stirrup steps. However, I prefer the appearance of the angled offset steps, so I substituted Tichy number 3047 angled offset side mount steps, which I had on hand. Whichever stirrup step you use, the steps have registration pins on the mounting surface. Do not attempt to drill holes for these pins. It is nearly impossible to get the steps level, and many of the pins will have broken off anyway. Just slice off the remaining pins and glue the steps in place with a dab of super glue. With the car body complete, it's time to prime and paint the car. Since this car is assembled complete with floor and roof attached, I used this special tool to hold the car for painting. It's just 2 lengths of number 2 by 56 threaded rod screwed into the bolsters and attached to a paint stirring stick with nuts and washers. The decal process is exactly the same as on the AccuRail kits, so see that video, Assembling an AccuRail Boxcar Kit, for details. You do need to be careful when handling the car, because the separately applied details are very fragile. The Tichy kits are probably not suited to the beginning modeler. They lack the interlocking parts and registration pins and holes common in beginner-level kits, and many of the parts need to be formed by the modeler, as you have seen. However, if you are even moderately skilled, you can assemble these kits with a little patience, and you will be rewarded with a highly detailed model at a very affordable price. Be prepared to spend some time on this kit, but the results are worth it. I would recommend building multiple kits at a time. It's much easier building the second car and subsequent cars once you've mastered the various techniques. In the description below this video, you'll find links to many of the products and tools I've mentioned. I love to read your comments and to respond to your questions. If you want to see more videos of this type, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.